So here we go. There's a good rotation here. Cal's ball's the play for Ali. So this is something that happens pretty often. If you watch Delephant, he's rotating out on the side of the ball. And what this does is it creates a situation where the person coming through is facing the person going to the ball. It also makes it where once Alejandro leaves net, nobody is in this area coming to fill that spot, even though the ball is still on this side. And this is bad for a couple of reasons. One, if this ball gets crossed over, he can't do anything about it, and this person has to rotate through net through Alejandro in order to get to the ball. The other big thing this does is if they end up having this person push up as a wingman and they get this ball across, you're getting scored on most of the time. What you want to do is around this boost pad, or this one at the latest, you want to cut out to mid, at least to this line. And what that does is when you start cutting out this way, you can give yourself a second, or even go all the way to this midfield point, or anywhere in between here, to make the decision to either turn in, turn to back of the net, and either path through one or two boost pads or not path through any of them, or even cut off a passing play or follow the ball across. It's a really, really strong movement. It gives you lots of transitional power, and it stops this situation where we have one person like this and another one hitting this ball. So if Delephant had come across, if I can figure out how to do this, Delephant had come across, he could have, from this point, pushed out and even pathed and followed this ball to challenge Jairu and force him to give up possession or even just fake challenge and put pressure on the ball. So right here, Cal pushes out when Alejandro's the only one back. He had vision of this side of the field a second ago, but I don't think it registered that there wasn't anyone over there, which means there's no one rotating back to fill Alejandro's spot. So this leaves Alejandro alone and essentially puts him in a 2 or 3v1 because he doesn't have any of his teammates to support and Dele is not getting back in time. He gets a good clear, which is fine, but this is borderline a free shot for the enemy team. Here we see something a little bit different. Dele coming into fill. Cal just kind of pushes out, which is fine. And he even turns around. When this situation happens and you have your teammate turning around to hit this ball that went behind them, if you're in net, what you want to do is be patient and stay within this area for a second longer. Even if it means backing up a little bit, I usually don't recommend backing up. I hate backing up on defense. But if you tuck yourself into net and just face out, it gives you more options. But you don't sit there. What happens is you do this. If your teammate gets the ball, you move out. If they don't get the ball, what you do instead is follow the ball and try and catch it or challenge it or put pressure on it. If you sit in net for any longer than that, then you're more than likely going to be stuck in that position for quite a while, and any of your teammates rotating through will end up having momentum and cut you because you have no momentum. You can't follow the ball. Dele does a good job of backing off once he realizes he's lost possession, giving Ali time to push out. So what's about to happen here is Ali's going to turn left, which is really bad because he already has 2 teammates over there, and Cal can't get to the cross fast enough. The things that need to change here is, from this point, there needs to be more patience on someone's part. So Del's pushing this. If Ali keeps pushing up and gets to this line, their box, once you get to their box, if your teammates haven't touched the ball, you don't turn toward the ball, you turn away. If you have someone crossing the net, you do a half rotation and get behind your one man so that they can take the wing. In this case, he doesn't. Cal is going to end up turning around. Del's going to put pressure on the ball. What Alejandro needs to do is leave. It opens you up a little bit, but this keeps rotations clean, and it stops you guys from overextending. Right here, what happens is you overextend, you have everyone on the same side, and then Alejandro is challenging this from a weird position. Instead of being over here, maybe even at this boost marker, and cutting in this way, he's challenging it from a turnaround like this, where he doesn't have a lot of momentum and can't really do anything with that ball, because that defender is not going to let it get in. And now he's just overextended. So right here, there's a little bit of a clog up on defense. Galster moves through. Alejandro takes a wide rotation. And this is the beginning of the clog up, is the fact that he went for that 100 boost. Even if you're low boost, you don't necessarily want to go for these 100 pads when you're the first one back to this back post and you have a person challenging the ball. What you want to do is either take a short rotation and cut in early, or at most, if you're coming out more, cut in at this boost pad. You don't want to cut all the way out to this boost pad unless your teammate is just pushing out, and you definitely don't want to go all the way to this 100 boost, because your other teammate usually can't defend the net from that position. So what happens from there is Del takes the kind of shorter rotation, but this is the rotation Del should have taken if Alejandro was already all the way over here and either pushing out this way or pushing out to follow the ball and support Cal, etc. But because Alejandro took that longer rotation, you see this happen. Everyone kind of slows down, and then Al starts to push out late and feels like he can go for this, when really this should just be Delephant's ball. What should be happening here is Delephant should be going for this. Cal doing what he's doing, rotating in this way, is fine. Del can go for this. Alejandro can push out. And then from here, the most likely scenario is that this ball gets crossed in midfield, or you guys keep possession and push up into offense and get a breakaway. But again, your guys' rotations get clogged up. Delephant ends up going for it kind of late because Alejandro goes for it. And now we have this clog up in net. And a triple commit. So they broke you down not because of anything they did, more because that long rotation from Alejandro at this point, and then this commit that didn't need to happen, that led to this extension of events where no one really knew who was supposed to be going for the ball, which resulted in that triple commit. So another thing that we should probably start working on is whoever goes for the ball, you want to put one person behind them, and you want to have the other person cheat. So whoever is closest or most able to go behind the person who's going for the ball, you go get boost. And you turn in. And then the person who cheats, what you do is you look, doesn't matter if you cheat up mid or a little bit off, you look for the ball if it goes this way. So if the ball comes anywhere in this circle, or goes out to the opposite side of the kickoff, you follow it. If that ball goes all the way across over here, or pushes out beyond this line, in any direction, if this pushes out this way, you don't go for it as the cheater. If it pushes out this way, you definitely don't go for it as the cheater. If it pushes back directly, you shouldn't need to go for it. Your teammate should have that. If it pushes off to this side, you don't go for it because your teammate should be able to cut up. What you need to do at that point is just rotate out, because you have one person who just got the kickoff and you need someone going back to net. In the instances where this pushes up this way, or this way, it's up to you. It depends on the situation. If they have someone who follows the ball up in any of these directions really rapidly, you could pull a fake challenge, or you could completely back off and let your other teammate come up and put pressure while you guys get situated for taking possession in this area of the field. But you definitely don't want to go for the ball if it gets behind you. As the person doing kickoff, what you want to do is try and hit this ball in such a way that you move the opposite way and the ball pushes the direction that your backman isn't. That way your cheater can pick up the ball and you're not in their way. If you end up doing this kickoff and flying off this way, that's fine. It's not ideal. Most of the time the ball will end up kicking out this way though. And then or stalling completely. And then lastly, if you're doing this kickoff and you're the person doing kickoff and you get stuck in this circle, don't immediately go for the 100 boost. What you want to do is look and see where your teammates end up. Because if both of them push out, what you want to do is get in one of these boost lanes as quickly as possible and get back to net. Reason being, if this person swerves out to follow the ball, they're not covering net, you have your person cheating, and if they go wide or turn in or whatever, they're not going to be able to cover net for a minute. And you really, really want to make sure that you get someone back as quickly as possible at that point. And then lastly, the person getting boost, typically you want to turn in. You don't want to overextend. It's very, very important that you don't accidentally get too far into the corner. And if you're comfortable, or once you guys get really good at this kickoff, you can end up turning out and then turn in the case that the kickoff goes south. And then if the ball goes over to this side, if you turn out like this, you can typically beat most people to the ball. The other big advantage of this kickoff is if they also have a cheater, which they do. In this situation, Cal could intentionally lose the kickoff back, and then Delephant can scoop it up, and Alejandro can push out and be ready to receive a long pass. And when they have a cheater, what happens is they have someone push up. Let me use a different color. They have someone push up, and they have their person who just did kickoff. And they just lost possession. So if you have your cheater get up to this side of the field, or even a little bit further and bang it to them, most of the time it's just one person back. They have to challenge that, and then you can move up with your cheater and get in their wing. And so they can either tap it down to you, just 50 the guy who's last back, or what have you, and you have offensive pressure. You go into standard offensive rotations, or alternative offensive rotations. You don't necessarily have to do standard rotations, but you go into offensive rotations and start applying pressure pretty immediately. And when this kickoff goes bad, you still have someone putting pressure midfield. You have your person who's rotating out, and you have your person who can rotate in, or in this case, rotate in. So it's a kickoff I do with my team. The split kickoff is fine. I don't really have a lot of problems with it, but when you notice that they have someone who's cheating a lot, the split kickoff is really at a disadvantage, because if at any point they stall the ball, you're under a lot of pressure defensively, and this team isn't the strongest defensively. So right here, if you find yourself in a situation where you touch the ball on defense and your teammates are there, you're not last back, you're not chasing the ball, you want to push out a little bit, at most to this line. I have a bad habit of pushing out this far, but you want to push out at least to this long line, or at most this long line, sorry, and start rotating normally. You do not want to immediately go to net. There's a few reasons for that. In this case, he typically already have someone. In this case, he has someone that's already back, which means we don't have someone covering this area if there's a pass. In the case that we don't have someone back, you don't go all the way out to this line is really what it is. But it gives you time to look for your teammates after making that touch instead of focusing on the ball, and you can see where you should be in rotation, and then you can see where you should be relative to the play after that, because you know your teammates, if they're in the right positions, are going to follow up those plays. But now we have this, and Delephant's backing up. He's backing up, not only is he backing up kind of outside of net, he's backing up to this back post, which exposes this side of the net. So right here we have a kind of sad situation where both people who are on offense immediately rotate wide. And what rotating wide is anytime you go past these lines in the field, these boost lanes. If you stay in these boost lanes, you're rotating tight. If you go outside of these boost lanes, you're rotating wide. It's okay to have someone rotate wide occasionally, but when you're coming off of offense and you have someone pressuring the ball, or you're coming off of offense and the ball is still on their half of the field, rotating wide usually exposes you. It makes it to where you have a gap in your rotation that they can put the ball into without you actually being able to challenge the ball. In this case, it means that Alejandro is the only one up, and he's going to double challenge this ball, even though Delephant could be rotating in on it. If Delephant had rotated not so wide, he could be turning at this point and reading the play. If he did go all the way back here, he could turn up and call Alejandro off, and Alejandro could finish rotations, and then Cal can be in the wing and push up. Something similar does happen, but Delephant's position on this ball is a little bit more rough because he has less lead-up time. And this is in part from him rotating wide. And then our defensive transition is a little bit on the sloppy side. From that point, Cal should have just bolted out and into midfield. That way he can fill that role of covering the midfield area where there could be a cross pass, and he doesn't stop, as we talked about earlier, he doesn't stop Delephant from coming out and challenging or make it to where it's uncomfortable and Delephant has to dodge him. So here's a situation where we get challenged off of the first touch, but we have someone upfield. What can happen here is Cal can either rotate back or play patient and just cheat up this far before rotating back. This far being right outside the box like we talked about earlier. What happens is Delephant puts this ball up. Cal does end up rotating back, but Alejandro doesn't rotate to this position. So when you're the first man up, you need to rotate across the net. The reason being, outside of getting bumps, is to fill this position. So you can turn up on this ball and receive passes, etc. Because Alejandro doesn't do that, Cal does this. Alejandro ends up turning around this way, while Delephant comes up this way. And this is a much more clogged rotation. You're less likely to actually get a play off of this. The reason being, your teammate usually has to dodge you or doesn't know what you're doing necessarily without you communicating it. And then you can see that we have this clog up that occurs as a secondary effect to this. So Cal ends up coming back here to fill that third man role, but again, Alejandro's not rotating out this way. And then Delephant, I think, also turns directly around. Yeah. And so you see, we don't really have anyone crossing this midfield line onto the left side of the field for this entire time that you guys are trying to pressure this ball. Even now, Alejandro doesn't. Calster doesn't. Delephant also rotates back again. And then it happens, and Cal finally crosses the line, but only to rotate out. And you can see that this, in part, is the reason you guys are under this kind of pressure. So if Delephant hadn't rotated directly out, he would have a little bit more space. He'd either be in this area or would have been in front of Calster down here instead of in front of Calster down here, which makes his turn up on this a lot easier. But in this case, what would be ideal is that Calster does this cut, Delephant finishes rotation. The result of this cut, that's what Delephant challenges. It really clears up these kinds of issues where you have these double commits. So even if Calster misses this, they do this little dum. If Delephant had rotated properly, he could easily be taking this ball out, and you guys would have better offensive pressure because there would be a breakaway where they only have one person backfield. So as long as you move the ball around them, you're usually scoring. So watch what Alejandro does. He starts to rotate the right way, but instead of getting closer to this line on the field, or even going a little bit further and coming in, he cuts at this midpoint. This is something that a lot of people get in the bad habit of doing, and the reason that this is really bad to do, unless you're certain that this ball is going in this corner, is for this reason. Look where that ball goes. Alejandro can't do anything because when you go down this line, you're almost always turning where the ball was. Now, if he was a little bit further over here, he can either turn and follow the ball, or even turn and bang it up towards where Delephant is going. But because he doesn't go wide, he can't push it up. He can only do this. And this is strictly worse because it gives the people who overextend a lot more time to get out, and it gives their third man more time to pressure you. The other issue with this is what Calster's doing right now. The rotations have just flipped, and he was on the right side, but now he's following the ball. And he should be doing this kind of deal. Maybe not exactly in that line, but something similar to that. So another reason these ball side rotations are bad. If you look at where, so there's space here. Not a whole lot, but there is some. If Calster had been the one challenging this and cut it off here, if he beats Giroux, this ball is pushing up this way. If he doesn't, this ball is pushing up this way. But because there's no decision on this matter, Alejandro's in a weird place rotationally, because he can't follow up the touch made by Delephant, but he's going to push up anyway, and Cal is also going to push up. And we have almost another double commit. That actually resulted in a goal. So Alejandro rotated probably the best he could here. The only downside is that he just wasn't able to get to the ball. I'm gonna need water after this. So here's another wide rotation. It's not the most harmful thing. If you look at where Alejandro is, so here it's fine. Everything's fine. Calster is going to net. He's not able to immediately follow up Delephant if Delephant had lost that 50, but that's just a happenstance of it. At this point, it's still fine. Alejandro is flipping, which puts him at a disadvantage if this ball comes to this area. But it's okay. What happens though is Calster pushes out before Alejandro is even close to getting back to fill that position. The reason this is bad is because Delephant isn't necessarily getting this ball. And then Alejandro immediately pushes out. So there's no time where they're looking at like how the play is going to develop. And so the rotations for a second are like this. You have this really, really long triangle where you have people going like this. And this results in an overextension because Delephant can't get back, and he's going to be rotating ball side. If he rushes back, he could end up taking this third man position, but there's no possession off of this. There's no way to really get this to a teammate. All you're really doing is contesting the ball over and over again. And you can see Alejandro's in a weird position now. And then there's a cut. So right here, at this point, Delephant shouldn't be trying to get the pass. He should be filling that third man spot. Because he doesn't, and he tries to get the pass, there's no one to really push that back up into offense. They do end up splitting apart really well. But Delephant gets stuck in this position from the zoning. That was a really good touch from Cal. So now, on the rest of the replays, what we're going to watch for is situations similar to the ones we just described in game 1, and how often they pop up, and some potential alternatives to them. So here's another pausing point. This is just a terrible situation to be in. It's good that Alejandro fulfilled his role, but we have some more cloud up. So when this situation happens as Delephant, immediately what you want to do is side flip into this ball and get it over here. You don't want to let this ball go out. If you let this ball continue to go out, more often than not, you're getting shot on. And your teammates, especially in this situation where you know that you don't have any teammate over here, you know that there's definitely not someone over here pushing the ball, you want to hit it this way, just to give your team time. And like, that situation arises a lot, not necessarily in front of the net, but in midfield. There will be times where you really just want to hit the ball into a corner, and it's fine to hit it back. Like, you're not keeping up pressure that way, but you're preventing pressure on your end. So we have another cut across field. Ball side rotations. So I hit another ball side rotation. More same side clogging, but this time there's almost a good rotation on offense. Mind that everything I'm talking about, there's always points where you break what I'm talking about. There's always situations where it's not the most appropriate thing to do. But it's very important to be aware of what the norm is and establish that with your team so that you can break it situationally effectively. It may not be completely apparent, but there's a lot of similar rotational breakdowns throughout these games. And most of the breakdowns come from Ali and Dele rotating wide, or rotating ball side, or cutting at times where they shouldn't be, because rotations are fine. You cut rotations when rotations are not fine. But then you have Cal doing stuff like this sometimes. But you can see that Dele and Alejandro are the ones who end up stuck in similar positions more often than not, because their rotational speeds and their decision making put them in similar spots more often than Cal. Cal tries to find space a bit more. This is a good clear. You can see here Cal's trying to find space yet again. He kind of turns in on the ball. But I think that was more reading the play than anything. Let's actually go back to that. So in this situation, you have two teammates in the corner in your last back. You typically don't want to pressure the ball. You want to let your teammates continue to pressure the ball. Even at this stage, it's at this point it's a little bit easier to push up on this. But if instead of trying to beat this guy to the ball, Cal moved to this side of the field where he's putting it, if this guy takes control, Cal can churn, shadow defend, move over, etc. You can turn to challenge, shadow defend in this case, or just rotate back to net. If this guy does bang it across in a panic, seeing that there are people over here, and then Cal can just swoop it up and either put it back over to his teammates or take a shot with a little bit more ease. He ends up saving his team time so that they can get back to defense, which is fine. It's just not in the best mode. Definitely got it away from everyone on their team though. More wide rotation. This is just a missed opportunity. Cal's going kind of wide again. You can see the rotation slows down a lot right there. Not so bad because you guys almost got a goal off of it, but right here I think this is anxiousness. So like right here, Cal just needs to continue finishing rotation. It's fine. If your teammate doesn't put pressure on this ball because they're not in the right place rotationally, you've lost possession anyway. If you try to challenge this ball and your teammate isn't there, you've already lost possession because your teammate's not there. Like, challenging this doesn't do a whole lot. So if you keep rotating, you stay in a better position and you continue to find space, but now you see how they get all clogged up. There's a bunch of space for this person to do whatever they want with the ball. It's pretty hard to challenge them, and if he just moves this around Cal, whichever one does, then they have a harder time getting onto they have a harder time staying on offense or like transitioning to defense. Cal gets a good challenge out of this though, but you can see that the transition was fairly poor because nobody went back. So in a situation where you're in net and you have someone who's behind you, even though you can't really challenge this ball, what you do is you push out. You let this ball go behind you and you push out. Doing that, what Alejandro did, is not beneficial. You don't need to get a touch on the ball, and more often than not, you just need to continue pushing rotations, because Cal's going to be a little bit late. He could even just continue to rotate ball side and be fine, but if Alejandro had moved out, you can see there's all this space. Jiro could challenge him or turn to challenge him if he doesn't finish rotating back. But Delephant's putting this ball this way. He definitely is. This ball just came this way and you have someone in the back of the net. That ball is almost always going back where it came from. You want to have someone out. Cal couldn't turn up because of the way he challenged, but Alejandro could have. And if Alejandro had pushed out and was at the tip of this triangle, with Cal back here, Cal could rotate this way or push up this way, and Del, depending on what Calster does, can decide to be a three-man behind Alejandro, or if Calster pushes out this way, Del, or that's the case where he becomes a three-man, but if Calster goes behind Del, it's fine to not have that three-man for a second, and Del can push out and support Alejandro. Instead, we have this transition where Cal goes upfield, and you can see that we don't have anyone who's able to get back. If Delephant gets beat to this ball, more often than not, they're getting scored on. He gets beat to the ball. Thankfully, they're not getting scored on, but you can see how it puts them in a really awkward place defensively. So for these last two, we're gonna watch them from. We're gonna watch the one where they win from Del's perspective, because I think Del is the one who's struggling the most currently. Alejandro's decision making is a little bit stronger than Del's. I think their mechanics are about even, and okay. So first issue, no flip. It pushes the situation where there's more than likely going to be a stall on the ball, but that lack of a flip means that you also don't have any boost, so you can't recover off of this very effectively. And this is going to be something that slows down rotations very, very significantly. What you want to do is get that first flip in, get behind the ball, use a little bit of boost, push up to it, and flip again. It's very easy to practice. There are also training packs for practicing that. You can just play more ones and just lose kickoffs constantly. But that's definitely something that you need to do to conserve boost and speed up your rotations off the kickoff. So, right here, whenever you're flipping, flip between ball cam. Any individual should be flipping between ball cam every time they flip. The reason being, right here, he can turn and look at that ball and not care if he drives forward a little bit more. He flips again, and again, should be looking at ball cam to see where he needs to turn to next. What ends up happening is he turns it on at the end of his flip to see the ball coming at his net. This is going to create panic. Even if you're a really comfortable player, that's an uneasy situation to be in because you don't really know what had happened for the last 3 seconds. And you can see that there's this semi-mindless challenge. Thankfully he gets the ball though. So this is a good defensive rotation. Very strong defensive rotation. Even got a breakaway out of it. A little bit of a rush on that last touch, but it worked out. So this worked out, but I would like to point out that from this point, he touches the ball across. He should be looking for the pass. You just want to turn infield at this point and look for a pass because you can't rotate all the way across, and you don't have a lot of boost. So using it to just push forward makes it to where it's harder for you to get back into rotation in the case that you guys lose possession. So right here, he pushes up. Apparently he had full boost. News to me. This happens. So at this point, you want to look for where your teammate is and do a half rotation and kind of just stay on this side of the field or leave if your teammate isn't going to win that ball. So Cal wins. Delephant should be on the opposite side of the field at this point. In the case that that person like touches the ball or clears it, Delephant or Alejandro can come in depending on what side the ball is on, and then the other person can rotate out. It works out this time, but that shouldn't have been a goal. And in the previous games, it wouldn't have been. So again, good defensive rotation. Good offensive transition. Bad follow-up. He needed to stay on the left side of the field because he's pushing up into this wingman lane. He's not transitioning into a 3 position behind Alejandro. He's staying on this left side of the field to cover that space. When this happens, if he stayed on the left side of the field, he could be pressuring gumdrop buttons. Instead, he has to follow that touch, and he can't really do a whole lot with it. You could even let Gumdrop just hit that ball. No fast aerial? No fast aerial again. Interesting. This entire game, Dele has been cheating. Wonder if they talked during intermission. So right here, this is bad. He has 40 boost. That happens. He has above 30 boost as he's starting his transition. If he just goes down this boost lane, he can get back to net quickly. You see how far away from net he is right now? He doesn't have the time to look for his teammate because he went wide. If he just turned his ball cam off and went down the boost line for half a second, because this person's getting this touch no matter what. Delephant can't stop it. But Delephant can stop the results. Like that double touch, or accidentally rotating into Alejandro. If he sees that someone's behind him, if he's going down this boost lane here, he can continue his rotation this way without hard committing and end up in back post. Another lack of a fast aerial. That one's more understandable, but see how long he sat here? Almost 3 seconds before he actually ended up moving. That's not good. You can hear Calster behind him. Oh, hold on, I need to.
Yeah, I just got it.
So let's watch this without his perspective.
Is with a
So
tree.
he sits here.
Like, oh, I know where a tree is.
You see how Calster also stops because he's kind of expecting Delephant to just either move out and challenge this ball or something. Alejandro is pressuring it, but Del could just be moving out into this space. It's fine, Calster's back. What ends up happening is this, and we almost have a double commit. But Calster's still in an awkward position, and we don't have anyone who's able to readily follow that ball up. Okay, there we go. Good save. So this kind of like hesitance back here. Alejandro's on that ball, but Calster's behind him. So, well, he was behind him. Del could be pushing up on this. Calster was obviously thinking about pushing up on it. But what needs to happen is someone needs to be putting more pressure on that midfield area and get less space between them. Because if they get a banger clear off of that, it's fine. They're both up on their side of the field. Calster could probably cover that if he doesn't flip up like he did. You see this is another issue. If you grab that 100 boost, the second you get that 100 boost, you should be hard cutting toward midfield. There is no longer any reason to be on the outside of the field. The only reason you're on the outside of the field is if you're challenging the ball on the wall, or you're trying to pick up a 100 boost. But staying on this outside of the field is actually very detrimental because you have a bunch of open space. You can see Alejandro has all this open space, and he doesn't have someone who has the ability to half rotate from midfield or someone who can cover his back that he can see is covering his back easily. That was a good turnout. Looking for 100 boost. Ooh. That should have been goal. That was such a good pass from Cal. It's a good pass down. So this cut here is not... This is not a bad idea to cut on as long as you commit to it sooner. With Alejandro turning like that, you just want to finish rotation. Because then you have a double commit. And now you're just out of position. In these kinds of situations where you have low boost, if you know that none of your teammates are pushed up too far and overextended, you can just pop this out. You can drive into that ball and just flip into it and try and like pop it out midfield, hit it up into the ceiling and make it bounce down. And anything to make it to where your teammate can follow it up, because you can't do a whole lot with that. That 50 is good, but it doesn't really do much for the team. Into that game, and now we go to the last replay where some bad stuff happens, and we're gonna watch this from Alejandro's perspective. I think has like slightly worse decision making but slightly better mechanics than Delephant. I think that's what I said earlier. I hope I'm not contradicting myself now. So right here, you don't want to do that. So this following the ball thing, you're watching this ball roll across the field. You just hit it there. This is the situation where you rotate out the same side that you hit the ball from. The reason being, your teammate's usually coming up that way, and you're not really doing anything other than chasing the ball. The ball's not coming to you, and on top of that, Alejandro has low boost. So this is just painful. He's getting close to Calster, he's taking himself out of the play for longer. And you can see if he rotated around the opposite side, he'd either be in the lane for Calster to pass to, or be the one pushing this ball instead of Delephant, and potentially pushing it a little faster. Or, even better, being a passing lane for Delephant. So Delephant knows which side he should be shooting toward. More kind of ball chasing. Even though you're not going for the ball directly, you're chasing the direction of the ball. So, low boost here, you have space. That person's all the way in midfield. There's not a whole lot of reason to panic like this. You could just slow down, take the ball, and worst case get a 50, but you want to bait that person in more. With this, you put space between them, and now Calster has to commit, and it's a 2-for-1 for him as third man back, which is great, because you guys can't really sustain pressure off of that. And that turnaround was really painful. This is what I mean, like, Delephant doesn't ball chase as hard in situations where he shouldn't ball chase. But Alejandro definitely has more consistent touches on the ball. So, here's another situation. There's some space. That hungry guy could challenge you, but that Jiru guy is not going to challenge you. He's also on Delephant, so Delephant can't really get to this ball, even if you hit it near Delephant, because Jiru can just turn and challenge it. What you want to do in these kinds of situations is this is a free touch. You know that there are two teammates on this side, so you either want to control the ball and hit it to the right, or bring it midfield with a dribble. And then if someone starts to pressure you, you flick it, or you 50 them, etc. But this is just giving up possession, because you had a free touch, and now... So I'm guilty of this also. I know we waited a long time, but this kind of challenge I'm very guilty of. What you want to do is you want to jump once, and then either backflip and start rotating back, or just boost to the ground and leave. You don't want to hard commit to this challenge because you're not getting to that ball. It's a great opportunity to fake challenge. Again, kickoff, no flip. You can see that they end with no boost. You want to end, I mean, like, worst case, you end with like 6 to 8 boost. And that doesn't seem like a lot, but it is something, and it helps you get more momentum. But ending with 0, especially after flipping into the ball, you're stuck slow. Those boost pads are all a good distance away from you. Almost an entire flip. And it takes so much longer for you to get back into play. More ball chasing. You see how much more Alejandro is flipping in and out of ball cam? Delephant, you need to start doing that. Watch this entire scene. Flips, switches, switches, switches. And he doesn't do a whole lot with the information, but he's at least gathering that information for when he is more capable of making those decisions. And when I say he doesn't do a whole lot, I mean he doesn't cut up after realizing the ball is going back onto the opponent's side. He didn't need to go all the way back. Not a whole lot Alejandro can do about that. Some replay bug. So here's an interesting situation. Alejandro actually does a good job rotating and Kalster doesn't. And Alejandro kind of just lets him cut him, even though Kalster definitely has a much worse touch. The other thing is from this point, he should be looking where Dell's going to put that ball. Probably backboard. Dell puts it backboard. At that point, Alejandro should already be up in the air, even with 20 boost. That's enough boost to get to that ball. That ball is below crossbar. You legitimately need 0 boost to get about this high. Anytime you have 0 boost, you can get about that high. 12 boost, you can get this high with some control. 20 boost, you can definitely get this high with good control, especially if you utilize your momentum from driving and do either a fast aerial or a long jump. But that's not happening, and so that ball ends up coming out really far. And you guys don't score off of it. This is a good rotational cut, but I don't think there's communication because Cal didn't know, and then there's more ball chasing. And my girlfriend just put a really warm sheet on me. It feels so nice. It's not a bad commit. That is a bad recovery. That is a good shot, though. So here you end with boost. This is... my teammate does this sometimes. Casey, he'll miss that boost pad right there. I'm not entirely sure why. I guess it is technically a harder kickoff to turn slightly and then do a diagonal flip. But I think you guys are capable of that, and should be doing it more often than not. So at this point, when you decide to commit to the ball, you should hard commit. Just hit this across. They have a person who's back. You know they have a person who's back. It's not about getting it to a teammate at this point as much as it's about playing keep away. And so when you keep it away, see how that hesitation If you just went and hit that, tried to like either get a 50 or pretend like you were going to get 50'd and push the ball to the right side, this situation would have played out a lot better for you guys. But that little bit of hesitation and slow down and trying to get like a better touch is actually harmful. More hard commit on ball chasing. Very wide rotation. And then pushing back over across. It's a good touch. So right here, that ball's not getting to you. You just keep rotating out. Don't go too far back, but don't turn in. This is hands down the worst thing. You're overextending. If J-Roo gets a good clear or beats Calster to this ball, you don't have anyone back, and there's almost certainly someone on your side of the field. You can see that you're late getting back because you didn't turn around. Your approaching was bad, and then you get scored on. So this is fine. Once that happens, yep, okay. Alejandro does the right thing, then he does the wrong thing. So here, pushes up, sees the ball's going that way, realizes it's crossing, turns around. That's fine. You want to stay on the left side of the field though. You want to look for your teammates also, but you want to stay on the left side of the field. When this happens, you do not go to the right side of the field. You stay on the left side of the field and get back more. Because you now have two teammates up who are overcommitted. And they're not going to be able to do any kind of follow-up on your touch, and that's a shot that's really hard to make, especially when there's a defender. If this shot, even if you get a really good shot off on this, that guy's probably saving it. It was a good try. In this situation, you want to just commit to the ball a little bit more than not. Get behind it, but stay closer. And you save that. It's okay to be on the side of the ball in these kinds of situations, because if you pinch them, they're more often pinching towards your side post or the corner. But when you get this far away from the ball, it's much, much easier for them to move the ball around you, because you don't have a lot of place to go. Had to shoot it slightly left to get it around you. I don't think that was very good. I don't really know what to say on that. I think there was a mistouch. If he got that across, it would have been fine. But either way, it's kind of a rough situation to be in. And here we go. So, closing remarks. Delephant needs to not go so wide on his rotations and play a little bit faster in general. And play a little bit more patient. I know that's counterintuitive, but patience on defense, speed on offense, and then not going so wide on transitions. Alejandro just needs to stop ball chasing. The decision making is mostly okay. There's obviously a lot of points where there's bad decisions being made, but most of those are a result of ball chasing. They're not necessarily a result of Alejandro just making bad decisions constantly. It's just the ball chasing, putting him in positions where he makes decisions that are bad. If he was in a better position, he wouldn't be inclined to make those kinds of decisions. That's where we end this. That's all I have to say. Good luck in your upcoming games, guys.